Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hogue, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm AJ Hogue, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Father of the Effortless English system, I train you, I teach you to speak English fluently, speak English powerfully, speak English effortlessly. When you join, when you commit to my VIP program, commit, don't quit, commit to my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. You will speak English fluently and powerfully and effortlessly when you join, when you commit to my VIP program. Commit, don't quit at effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. Brave New World, chapters 9, 10, and 11. We're going to do 3 chapters. We're going to start speeding up now. Speeding up with this story. Why? Because I think we know, we have seen the major ideas of the book now. Okay, especially the social commentary, the predictions of our current world right now, the mind control techniques, all of this, really, we know all of the major ideas now. And so now the rest of the book is mostly focused on the story, focused on how both Bernard and John are going to, end up, what's going to happen with them. The two characters now, because now we have 2 characters who don't fit into Brave New World. Bernard, who was born into Brave New World and doesn't quite fit. And John, who grew up in kind of a more normal world, but not totally normal, but in the reservation. Almost like the opposite of Brave New World. It's a little bit extreme. And now they're both, in this chapter, both going back to London, both going back into Brave New World, and we'll see what happens to them. And that's kind of the story. So the story becomes a little more personal now, focused on these characters and the kind of these psychological effects of Brave New World on these 2 characters, especially these 2. And we're going to see the psychological effects are not very good. Neither one of them will end up very well. It's not going to be a happy ending for either of them, especially John. Now, we are live on YouTube today. Thank you very much. Thanks for the thumbs up you guys are giving me. Thumbs up. Let's just jump right in. I know, I'm going to try to move quickly. I have to move a little quickly because, as you all know, I have to take care of babies at night. So let's move quickly so we can get right into the comments and questions after. So chapter 9, let's talk about what happens in chapter 9. They go back to London. So remember, in the last section, the last part, they met Linda and John, right? So Bernard's boss, the director of the place where they condition people, Bernard's boss is going to basically to fire him, transfer him to Iceland, to a bad job in a faraway place. But he found out that Bernard's boss 20 years ago had this woman named Linda. They went to the reservation, and this woman, she left. She got captured by the locals, and she had a baby, John. And the father is the director. Bernard's boss is John's father. And of course, in Brave New World, to be a father is something terrible. To be a mother is something terrible, because remember, this is a main mind control technique, destroy the family. And of course, that's something that's happening right now in our world. Destroy the family, destroy the family. It's one of their major goals, which they have done very well doing, and they're still working on it. Okay, so they go back. Now, chapter 9, they're kind of getting ready to go back. And I think the key point here is, the key scene is where John sees Lenina. John kind of falls in love with Lenina, because remember, John's a young man. He's only 20, I believe. So he's a young man, and he's, like most young men that age, right? He has these strong sexual desires, these strong feelings about women. And of course, Lenina's very beautiful because in Brave New World, they have genetic design, so they make the women very beautiful and sexy. So he sees her sleeping, and he wants to touch her. He has these sexual thoughts about her, and then no. And he stops himself, and then he feels guilty, he feels bad. So this is just showing kind of the difference with him, right? Because in Brave New World, they are taught from little children to be sexual, right? And that to just follow their pleasures, to follow their desires. Any desire, they do it in Brave New World. It keeps them weak. They have no discipline at all. But John is kind of the opposite. And John, he has discipline. He stops himself. But there is one problem with John because his discipline's not healthy. Because he has guilt. Then he feels guilty about it, and he feels, oh my God, I'm horrible. Oh, this is terrible. It's not only he has discipline, but he also has all these bad feelings about it, all these negative feelings, judging himself, which is also not very healthy, right? There's a middle way. There's a middle way where we realize these sexual desires, for example, are, of course, totally normal and natural. But then we also realize that we need to control them. They need to be controlled. We need to use discipline so that we use our sexual desires in a healthy way, being married, having children with our wife or our husband, then, this is quite a healthy, natural way, the traditional way. And it's a nice middle way where we don't deny these things, which are natural, but we don't just follow them with no discipline at all, which makes us uncivilized and weak and disgusting. So there's a middle way, and Huxley, the writer, is kind of showing us the extremes. There's Brave New World, where it's just sex, drugs, pleasure, constantly. So the people's minds, their emotions are like, small children. They're easy to control. And they're kind of disgusting people. But then there's the other extreme, which we're seeing with John, where, okay, yes, he has some discipline, but then it's mixed with all this shame and denial and all this kind of also negative stuff, which also is not very healthy. And we've seen in history, of course, at different points where we've had some people, even some societies, which went too far the other direction, and they said, oh, sex is disgusting, and and then even in marriage, that it's always terrible. So again, we're seeing there is a middle way. There's a middle way. And it's the same with all these desires and pleasures. Food, for example. So we must eat. So we can't deny ourselves food forever, right? That would be one extreme. If we went too far, well, we would, of course, die. We would die if we never ate food. So the desire for food, of course, is natural and useful. However, as we see in our world now, our modern world now, if we have no discipline, if we don't control that desire, what happens? We become fat, we eat disgusting food, and we become very, very unhealthy, diabetes, health problems, terrible, terrible things. Again, there's a middle way, right? Yes, of course we need to eat, but we need to do it with wisdom, with control, with discipline. The middle way. So we're kind of seeing with the two characters now, what's changing now is we're going to see these extremes now, where Huxley's showing us the one extreme of John, where he really he has discipline, but it's this kind of like force. He's trying to he's trying to completely destroy all his natural desires, which doesn't work. It creates a lot of mental problems, emotional problems. And then we have the other side of Brave New World, where they have no discipline at all, and this makes them also very unhealthy and disgusting and causes massive, huge problems also. All right. That's chapter 9. On to chapter 10 now. In chapter 10, they finally arrive back. They go back. Now, in chapter 10, Bernard's boss is waiting. They go back, so it's Linda, right? Linda, who looks like an old woman now. Not really old, but kind of middle-aged. But remember, everybody in Brave New World, they don't look old. They take hormones and, I don't know, maybe plastic surgery, whatever. So they always look young until they die. But she, of course, is, 20 years older. She looks like a middle-aged person, an older person, and everybody's shocked to see her. So they go back to where Bernard works, to his job, and his boss is waiting. His boss announces to everybody that Bernard is being fired. They're sending him to Iceland. So his boss is kind of, this is fun for his boss to embarrass Bernard. But Bernard has a plan. Bernard brings out Linda. Look, this is Linda. And then he tells everybody, Linda was the director's, his boss's, like girlfriend, lover, and she's a mom. And his boss, the director, is a dad, and John comes out. John, the young man, runs up to the director and he says, "Oh, father, my father." And he has all this great emotion to finally meet his father. And what does everybody do in Brave New World? They laugh. They laugh at him because to be a father is disgusting. To be a father is terrible. To be a mother is terrible in Brave New World. They laugh at John and they laugh at the director. And we can see, of course, when you read this, you feel how disgusting and terrible this is. You see how evil it is, how they are creating this where they really hate families. They hate fathers. They hate mothers. And this is what our Brave New World people now, they feel the same way. They hate fatherhood. They hate mothers. They hate families. And they're doing everything they can to destroy marriage and families. And they are disgusting and they are evil. But in Brave New World, this is terrible, and so the boss is super embarrassed by this, and he runs away and quits his job. So Bernard kind of wins. Bernard, on the other hand, becomes famous, because Bernard, everybody is afraid of Linda. They don't like Linda because she looks old. So they're, oh my God, she's terrible. She's a mom. That's terrible. And she's also looks older. She looks terrible. So everyone in Brave New World, they don't like Linda. But they like John because John's very young. He's kind of handsome, right? So they all think, oh, he's interesting. He's this kind of like, they think he's a savage. They think he's uncivilized, but he's kind of interesting. He's just entertainment to them. They don't really care about John, but they think he's entertaining. And because he's entertaining and Bernard is like his kind of helper, now Bernard becomes kind of famous also. Oops. And of course they realize, Linda will never be accepted again. Even though she's originally from Brave New World, she's been living in the reservation for 20 years, so now she can never be accepted again. Okay, finally, we get to chapter 11. And we find out Linda is not doing well. Linda is just taking drugs all the time now. She's taking Soma, remember the drug, and she's taking more and more and more because she's so depressed being back in Brave New World. She looks old. Everybody hates her because of that. They hate her because she's a mom. So she's just trying to escape by taking drugs more and more and more. John's very worried about her, it's his mom, and he's worried she's, going to, of course, overdose, that she's just taking more and more and more and more. It's not good for her, and it's not, of course. And of course, we've seen we see this in our world right now, people who take more and more and more drugs to escape their problems. Bernard, on the other hand, is doing very well. He becomes popular because he's kind of John's, caretaker. So everybody wants to meet John, the savage. John's entertaining. And so Bernard becomes kind of famous, and he starts getting some social power. Remember before, Bernard, he was kind of an outsider. People didn't trust him. He was strange. But now Bernard has become popular because of John. So this happens a lot. We see this is a commentary about our world also. that we see that many times in life. Someone who was a victim before, someone who was an outsider before, when they get some power, they become even worse. They become worse than the old bullies. They become the worst bullies of all. And this is what happens to Bernard. He kind of goes crazy. Suddenly he's popular. For the first time, he's popular. For the first time, he has some social power. And it's not good. He becomes kind of an asshole. He becomes an asshole. He starts having sex with lots and lots and lots of women. His ego becomes really big. We see this now. You see this like in Google and Apple. All these geeks, right? These Silicon Valley. A lot of those employees, a lot of the people who work in those companies, when they were young, they were bullied. They were not, they were the geeks. They were the smart guys that were weak, and maybe they were bullied. And you think, well, when they get power, maybe they'll be different. They'll be more nice. But that's not what happens usually. Usually when those people get power, they become even worse. They become the worst bullies of all. Then they want revenge. Then they get big egos. And we see this now. This is one of the many problems with Google and Facebook and Apple. Their employees are disgusting, terrible people. Because when they were young, they were bullied. Now they have power. Now they work at these powerful companies. So what are they doing? Now they're bullying everybody else. Now they're trying to control and censor and block everybody else. They're terrible, terrible, bad people. And we're seeing Bernard's not such a nice guy now. Now, we also will see that these people usually pay a price eventually, and this will not go forever. Bernard will not, because, he's still the same guy. Nothing changed. He has a change in situation, but eventually it's going to go back. The final part of this chapter is that Lenina and John have a date. They go on a date together, right? Remember, John is kind of in love with Lenina, or at least attracted to her. So they go to see a movie, which are called Feelies. I'll talk about that in a minute. But after the movie, John drops off, like very traditionally. He leaves Lenina at her apartment. He does not have sex with her, right? Because he thinks this is honorable. He thinks this is what he should do. But Lenina's very disappointed. She's frustrated because, of course, in Brave New World, women just have sex with everybody all the time, and so do men. So she's kind of confused. She's disappointed. She doesn't know why didn't he have sex with me? And John kind of has all these uncontrolled feelings where he has some discipline, but then he feels guilty, and so he also struggles a lot. Now, these movies are basically, again, we talk about virtual reality, and this is coming. We don't quite have it yet, but this is what our little technology world controllers want, because it's even better propaganda, even better control. So right now we have movies, so they're visual. We watch movies with our eyes. We hear them with our ears. But with virtual reality, they will add touch. You'll be able to feel the movies. You'll have a physical sensation, and the idea is also smell. There'll be smells. So it's basically virtual reality. The other thing about these movies in Brave New World, it's pornography. It's just basically about sex. It's just about sex. It's porn. It's porn. And again, we'll see that in our world also, porn destroys people. Pornography is it's probably the worst and most powerful form of mind control to destroy somebody. Because it makes them a slave to sex. It makes them a slave to their desires. It fills their mind with just sex, and all these strange sexual desires. Many people who watch pornography too much, they cannot even enjoy normal sex anymore. So it's very, very, very destructive. And so we see he predicted this also, that pornography would be a powerful way to make people weak and easy to control. And finally, John, he uses the phrase again, Brave New World. And remember in the beginning, like last week, he said Brave New World. It's from Shakespeare. He talked about Brave New World, and meaning he thought that Brave New World, that London would be amazing. Now he's using it in a sarcastic way or ironic way where he actually means the opposite. He actually is seeing that Brave New World, that London is a terrible place. And he's already waking up. John is waking up that something's very wrong in this place. All right. And that's it. Those are the 3 chapters. Those are the major ideas. We can now go right into our comments and questions. Fernanda says, hey, Fernanda again. Every Saturday is bright because of our book club with you. I wish the best for you and your family always. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fernanda. I feel the same about you all. This makes it fun. These books are more interesting for me because I discuss them with you and get your ideas and your questions, and it's very interesting for me also. I enjoy the books more, and it makes me think about the books because I know I have to talk about them to you. I actually think a little more deeply about the book and kind of, what's the messages? What's the message here? And same with and I feel the same way about the movie, The Matrix. Quite fun doing this with you all. Okay. Just fine. I'm just kind of moving down here. Lots of people saying, hello. Okay, I'm going to jump to the bottom and go backwards. Here we go. Al says, I can't imagine a world without control and slavery. Brave New World has always existed throughout the history of humanity. Yes and no. Yes, there has always been some kind of social control, obviously, especially with greater technology. I think agriculture, if you look at the history of humanity, agriculture was where this concentration of power really began to get much stronger. On the other hand, though, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between, let's say, 2,000 years ago and now. And it's the technology. It's the technology. We are living now in the worst time in history for propaganda and mind control. It was much less 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, even 200 years ago. This is, Brave New World. They are completely just, we still had good, strong families then. Now our families are being completely destroyed. Divorce is out of control. All the stuff with the transgender stuff, the gay and lesbian stuff, the attacks on our families, our traditions, all of this. The technology is what makes it so powerful and so horrible. Yeah, Nasser says some evil geniuses had to invent these horrible techniques. Well, indeed they did. To destroy the world, the plan is working really well. This is a very serious problem, not easy to solve. True. It is serious and it's not easy. Yes, Pablo says, pornography uses a big natural force to manipulate people. That's well said. It's using a natural force, a natural desire, which is, of course, sexual desire, to manipulate and control people. That's right. Good word, manipulate. It's the same thing that the food industry does with all the junk food and sugar and fructose and all this junk, high fructose corn syrup and everything. They use our natural desire of needing to eat to make us into fat, lazy, easy to control, unhealthy people. Well, that's what pornography does using the sexual desire. And Pablo says spiritual people recognize it. Yes, spiritual people recognize this manipulation, this control. Yeah, like Pablo says, I've seen bullied kids have bullying parents. That's right. This does happen too. Parents bully them, then the kids do the same at school. I wonder if the same happens in Silicon the Silicon Valley. They learn first as victims. I think often, yes. This is the danger. And you'll see this, this is common anyway, like abuse, right? We all know this, right? So somebody's parents are abusive, right? They beat the children. They hit the children. They're terrible. And then the children grow up to become adults. And we know there are two possibilities. Possibility number one, the child grows up, becomes a parent, and also abuses their own children. It's the cycle of abuse. And so it just keeps going, right? And they use it as an excuse. I was abused, so that's why I abuse my children. But it's bullshit. They have a choice. Because we also know the other choice. The other choice is the child grows up and says, I will never abuse my own children because I know the pain of being abused. My parents hurt me. I will never do that to my children. And so they grow up and they become very loving, kind, wonderful parents. So there's always the choice, right? Just because you're a victim, just because you're bullied, that does not mean you also must become a terrible bully. Some do. Some choose that. But others choose the opposite. We see this with alcoholism and drug addiction. So maybe, again, a parent is an alcoholic. So the child grows up and let's say, their parents, let's say both parents, mom and dad, they're alcoholics. So they grow up. And what happens? The children, again, have a choice. Sometimes you see in the same family, maybe two children, one child becomes an alcoholic also. Well, mom and dad were alcoholics, so of course I became one. But then the other child chooses something different. The other child says, I will never drink. Because my parents were alcoholics, I know how terrible it is, so I will never do it. Right? It's the same family, it's the same situation, but they choose completely different paths. And they're using the same excuse. My parents were alcoholics. But they choose totally different paths. And so this is a good reminder that we have this in life. Anytime something bad happens to you, even someone abuses you, is bad to you, you have a choice. You can choose to become like that and to do that to other people when you have power. Or you can choose to never do that. You know the pain and you decide, I will never, ever, ever, ever do that myself. And I will protect others from that. Right? What's sad is that a lot of people choose to become the bully. A lot of people decide to get revenge or to become like the person or the people who hurt them. That's sad, but it does happen and it's quite common. Yeah, Pablo's got lots of good comments. So keep reading Pablo's comments. The middle way is ideal, like you mentioned, like Buddha realized. It's like an instrument chord, not too tight, not too loose. Just the right tone. Brave New World shows this. Yeah, and that's actually an actual example that the Buddha used in one of his teachings, right? That if you have a guitar, right, the string, well, if it's too tight, it will break, bing, and the sound is bad, or it will break. If it's too loose, the sound is bad. You need it right in the middle, the right thing, and then it gives the perfect tone. And many things in life, I won't say all, but many things in life, we need this also. We need discipline, but we don't want this kind of denial, right? That middle way. We need, another example, we need love and kindness, but we also need strength and good judgment. Right? Strong and kind. Too much of one, too much strength, and maybe we're not very kind, and we're maybe mean to people. Too much kindness, and we're weak, and people do bad things to us. So you need that middle way. Boofender says, were you a geek boy when you were young? Yes. Absolutely. Well, not when I was little, but in like teenager years, I was pretty much a geek. Not when I was younger, I was kind of an outdoor. I like to just be outdoors all the time, kind of wild. And then But when I was in high school, maybe middle school and high school, I was geeky for sure. Wow. Vladislav says, yesterday during an 8-hour train trip, I read Brave New World to the end. Now I'm able to understand the book in English. Woo, yeah. That's fantastic. Though a year ago, it was difficult. My English has improved. Thank you, AJ, for what you're doing. Nice. That's a great success story, Vladislav. I'm not surprised. I mean, you're one of our regulars, and that's really great. It's a great feeling, right? To read a book like that. It's not an easy book. It's not an easy book. It has some strange vocab in it that's kind of science fiction, you know. There are several words in the book that are used in a way that's not normal. The style of writing in general is not easy. So to read that in English and understand it is really quite a success. And so congratulations, Vladislav. That is very impressive, and that's wonderful. Yeah, Fernando is right about this. In the beginning, in your first courses, you seem to defend a lot the blue pill San Francisco lifestyle. People doing whatever they want. How and when did your red pill waking up process start? Yeah, you're right. You can see my own wake up. You can see it if you go back and look at some of my videos and even some of my old lessons of 13 years ago, let's say, where I was very blue pilled about everything. And just saying all the kind of typical stuff about it. And then you see more recently a very big change. And I don't know, it's a process, so it's hard to say when. You know, in the movie The Matrix, it's a sudden thing. Neo eats the red pill and he wakes up. But I think in real life, for most people, it's more of a step-by-step thing that happens. And I'd say in the last, let's say the last 6 years, it has been a big change for me, where I started to wake up. And actually, San Francisco's part of that, because I finally saw, living there, I saw the result of Brave New World. I started to finally realize, if this keeps going, if this continues going in this direction, right, of what they want, it will become Brave New World. I started to realize, I started to see the truth, not just their lies. I started to see that it will never stop. It's not enough. They don't just want gay rights. No, after gay rights, it becomes gay marriage. After gay marriage, it becomes transgender. After transgender, it becomes sex with children. They're already doing it, trying to change these children, change these little boys, 7, 8 years old, and give them drugs and tell them they're girls. It's disgusting. It's evil. It's evil. So I finally realized, I saw past the lies. I started to see the reality. And it was a big wake up. It's like Neo taking the red pill, and you suddenly see the terrible, ugly, horrible truth. And that's what happened to me. And I'm happy that I lived in San Francisco, because I got to see it clearly there. Maybe somewhere else it's less obvious, but there, San Francisco's Brave New World 100%. And the same with the drugs. I saw, first I used to say, oh yeah, drugs, it's okay. You're an adult, do what you want. But then I started to see the result of it. I started to see the people there and the result of the drugs, that it never stopped. It just got worse and worse and worse. And you see all these homeless people, all these heroin addicts. It's just disgusting and sad and tragic. And then I realized, too, I began to see there were no families in San Francisco. Very few families. They hate it. And a lot of people in San Francisco, a lot of the people there, you talk to them, and after you know them a while, you realize they hate their own families. They hate their parents. They just when they talk about their own families, that usually from somewhere else, another city, that they're always insulting their moms and their dads and their brothers and their sisters, and they're saying terrible things about them. They don't like marriage. I began to see the horrible, horrible truth, just like Neo, where he feels like there's something wrong, and then he begins to see, and in the beginning it's like a shock and heart, like, oh my God. And yeah, this happened to me. And then of course even before I became a parent, just when I started to think about becoming a parent, and because I waited so long, and we waited so long, we're quite old for parents, it took us a while, right? It was not easy to do. But just the process, thinking about becoming a parent, I began to think longer term and not just thinking about right now. I have to think about, well, my children's future. I have to think about 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, when my children are grown up and adults, when they are parents, possibly my future my future grandchildren. And then as I began to think long term and seeing what was happening, I began to realize what it would become. It would become this book. This is it. It's already probably 80%. We already live in Brave New World, and we're moving towards 100%. And we have to fight it, and we have to fight it with everything we have, without fear. Defender says, is watching porn a sin? I'm not going to talk about it from a religious point of view. It's just bad idea. It will make you unhappy. It will destroy your happiness. It will destroy your self-control. It will make your ability to have a good relationship with a girl, with a woman, worse. It will destroy your enjoyment of real sex, because you'll have this stupid, crazy bullshit fantasy from the pornography. So when you have real sex, you won't enjoy it as much. It's bad. It's just bad effects. It's like drugs. I don't know. Drugs a sin? I don't know. I'm not talking about it religiously. I'm just saying psychologically that, taking heroin will destroy you. Okay? If you take enough, or cocaine or something like that, if you do it and you do it and you do it, you're going to need more and more and more. You become less and less happy. You destroy your life. Pornography is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It is a kind of mental sexual drug, and it will have the same effect. You will need more and more and more. It will destroy you. I don't know. I don't know if it's a sin or not. If you have a religious view, it's a sin, fine. But it doesn't matter if it's a sin. It will destroy you if you do it. So if you are doing it, I recommend stop it. Just like if you're taking drugs, just stop. If you're eating too much, if you're eating junk food and eating like a pig and getting fat, stop. Okay? Just stop. Aberdamani says, today the audience is not so huge. A little bit smaller than normal. They don't like Brave New World. Well, these are deeper topics, guys. You have to realize Brave New World, this is a deep book, right? It's a very serious topic. And one thing I have learned is that, a lot of people are not very deep. The school system, they don't have to think like this. Most people just want, fun entertainment. Fun, la, They don't want to think seriously about things. This is something that's very different about Effortless English. If I want to just get a maximum audience, right, just the largest number of people, the biggest number of clicks, I'll just do the same 5 videos. This is what most English teachers do on YouTube. How to learn the past tense, how to do the future tense. It's just the same stupid English topics, okay? Or something about pop culture, something about music or songs or something like that. That's how you attract the most people. Something lazy, something very shallow. But we're different, and I'm different. And I don't care about that stuff, and I don't like that stuff. So I don't care if everybody likes me. I don't care if everybody joins our channel. We don't need a giant number of people. I'm more focused on quality. I want people who are intelligent. I want people who are very motivated like you. And because of that, we can do very interesting topics, very deep topics. We can do books like Brave New World or The Alchemist, Animal Farm. We can do movies like The Matrix. It's so much more interesting, right? I think it's much more interesting. So we sacrifice a little bit of a larger audience. But look, if people who want just that mindless stuff. There's thousands of people doing that. So I don't need to be another one, right? There's already a huge amount of that. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. How to stop watching porn videos. Just stop. It's just like, people like, it's, you just stop and you stop completely. It's just like fasting, okay? Like people say, like my mom, again, the example, she's overweight, she's fat, eating junk food. She tried dieting, this and that. What's working the best? Completely stop. Fasting. Stop eating. Just stop eating totally. Boom. Okay? That's the way you do it. So how do you stop pornography? You completely stop. And you never do it again. Fasting. It's just like fasting. You have to cut it. Because if you just do it a little bit, each time you do it, it makes you want to do it more. Okay? It's the same thing. It's the same like with sugar, eating sugary foods. Okay? If you try to cut back and just do less, it doesn't work. Believe me, I know. I've tried it many times. It doesn't work. You have to just completely cut it. When you completely cut it, it's actually easier. It's easier. This is what St. Augustine taught, okay? And St. Augustine taught this about sex, in fact, that it's much easier to completely stop than to try to reduce it. To try to just do it less is much more difficult, requires more control and discipline. To totally stop is actually easier. So that's what I recommend. Okay, Vladislav says, I have some fasting success. I arrived at my parents. They tell me I'm too thin. Yeah, well, fat people will always tell you you're too thin. My parents are pharmacists. They warn me that fasting can cause cholecystitis long term. I think we need a middle way. Well, it depends on how much you're fasting, but I think you're fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, like Zohair says, drugs are a waste of time. They destroy your memory, your self-respect, everything that goes along with your self-esteem. They're not good at all. They generally don't lead very good places, especially without any moderation at all. Of course, there's big differences in different kinds of drugs. As I've said, alcohol's a drug. You have a glass of wine, it's not going to destroy you, okay? Just do discipline, right? Moderation, all these things. Certain drugs, however, things like heroin that are cocaine that can be very powerful, they're really just not good in general. Yeah, now see, Romulo Designer, I've seen this myself. I just saw this even in Japan. It's worse in America. Here's this comment. The worst about sexual education is that parents are dressing little girls as sexy, dressed adults. Yes, not only parents, but you'll see this in advertising now. You see it on television where these little girls are being dressed up like sexy adults. This is Brave New World where they're trying to make children sexy, where they want to make it normal. They want to make it okay to have sex with children. Of course, that's just raping the children. That's molesting children. It's disgusting. It is evil. It's the worst evil possible. It is horrible. But they are doing it. They are pushing this in the media, and some parents are following it, where they dress these little girls like 10 years old. I've seen it like 8-year-old girls, and they're dressing them up. I saw this little advertisement today for some kind of makeup, and it had a video, this little girl, and she's all dressed as a sexy adult, and she's doing these little, like, sexy moves, like, not like a child at all. Disgusting. And this contributes to wiping out their childhood innocence. Yes, it does. You're right about this. It's not an accident, okay? This is part of Brave New World. As I said, it's step by step. This is part of my waking up. I realized they'll never stop. Each thing they're pressing. They're saying it's going to be another step. It's going to continue to get worse, okay? There was the gay thing. I was like, well, I don't care if people are gay or not. But then, oh, no, they didn't stop there. Now they're pushing the transgender stuff. Now they're pushing sexy children. And they will continue pushing until they destroy families completely, until sex with little 7-year-olds is okay. This is what he gave us the plan. Aldous Huxley showed us the plan step by step. We know exactly what they're trying to do now. And it's ugly. It's like Neo. When you first see it, it is horrible and ugly, and you'll be just kind of like Neo, maybe you want to throw up, right? You're just enraged, or it makes you crazy, or makes you super depressed. Yeah, because it is depressing. It is horrible. It's terrible. It's a horrible evil that's being done. But, like we'll see tomorrow with The Matrix, we have to go past that. We cannot get stuck just being angry and sad, because then we're not powerful. Then we're weak still. We're still weak. We're weak when we're blue-pilled and we're under control. We're very weak. But even after the red pill, after we wake up, if we stay just only angry and only sad, we're still kind of weak. So we have to go to the next step, which we'll see in The Matrix. We don't see it in this book. This is Brave New World's not a optimistic book. All right? It's more of a warning. Much like Animal Farm, right? Animal Farm does not have a happy ending. Brave New World also does not have a happy ending. Now, The Matrix does have a happy ending. And in The Matrix, we kind of see that there's a next step. And for us, we have to get our power back. So we see the horrible, ugly truth, but we don't stop. Then we make ourselves strong. That's the next step. We have the real truth now. Now we have to make ourselves strong so then we can fight back. We can't fight back first, right? Because we're still weak. First, we have to, it's just like the 7 Habits book, right? First, you have to focus inside on yourself, make yourself strong and powerful and independent. Then the next step, the final step, is you fight back, because now you're powerful. Now you're awake. Now you know the truth. Now you also are strong. Then you're ready to fight back. There's a process, step by step. So we cannot get stuck just being depressed. Vladimir Medvedev says, don't watch TV. Throw it away. That's great advice right there. I'll read the rest of it, but his first sentence is really good advice. Don't watch TV. Throw it away. And then he says, don't drink alcohol at all. Get rid of all that junk stuff. Instead, read, think, and learn. And you're going to be red-pilled over time. He's 100% right about that. You'll just naturally wake up. The first part, you're removing the mind control, especially the TV part, but the other stuff too. You're removing the mind control. That's part 1. And then part 2, the reading and thinking, especially reading those older books. Then you're starting to get more truth, and you're starting to wake up. That's the red pill. So first you have to remove the blue pill, then you start taking those red pills. Well said. Well, this is a nice way to say it, Motion, about sin. Everything that hurts us is a sin because God loves us. He wants us to love ourselves and doesn't want to see us being hurt. Well, that's a nice definition of sin. I like it. Very nice. Yeah, well, see, again, you're talking about another part of Brave New World here. These days, people tend to advertise about polyamory. Polyamorous. What does that mean? It means just being a slut. Okay. It means it's just Brave New World. It's what Lenina does. It's just having sex with lots and lots and lots of people. Just meaningless sex. Poly means many. Amory means love. But of course, it's not love. They don't love many people. It's just sex with many people. Accepting other genders, meaning like the whole transgender thing. If we don't accept it, it means we're stupid and take it as an insult. Well, that's their mind control technique. They're going to insult you. They say you hate these people, that you're bad. So what do? Do not argue with them logically. It doesn't work. You insult them back. You attack them back. You tell them that they're evil. You tell them they want to have sex with kids. You tell them they are disgusting. That's how you do it. They attack you, you attack them right back. You have to fight, okay? We have to fight. We're going to see this in the Matrix, okay? There's no more Mr. Nice Guy. This is part of the red pill, okay? When I was blue-pilled, I thought, oh, just always be nice and, always be kind. And no, if we're too kind, then we become victims and they win. When you see the truth, when you're dealing with someone like that, you have to attack them back. Don't even argue with them. It's not an argument. It's not a rational discussion. They will never listen to reason. They don't care. They hate reason. They hate goodness. They hate virtue. They hate family. They hate God. So, there's no point arguing with them. You attack them. You do everything you can to attack them and destroy them. That's how we win. That's the mindset you need, guys. This is a war. This is a war. We are against Brave New World. And you can't be nice. Be nice to your friends. Be nice to good people. But against those people, no mercy. Like Cobra Kai, If you guys like Karate Kid, Cobra Kai. Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. All right. Yeah, well, let's see. Obra says, I hate drugs, TV. They don't like people. They destroy us. They destroy our families. My husband is still blue-pilled. When I told him the truth about our world, he doesn't believe me, said I don't know anything. Well, they're blind, these blue-pill people, they're blind. They can't see. They're brainwashed. They're completely controlled. We see this. Lenina cannot see the truth. We're going to see this through the whole book. Lenina cannot wake up. Bernard kind of was waking up. Now he's got a big ego. He's forgetting, but he's going to wake up again by the end. But there are many people who never wake up. Yeah, like Pablo says, no more running from agents. It's time to fight, Neo. Exactly. Sarah says, I don't watch TV at all. It's all propaganda. All of it. Oh, this is nice. Cardo says, please make a lesson about marriage and being strong with obstacles, how to treat the best with your life partner. Yeah, that's a good discussion. Maybe we'll even find a book or something about that where we could discuss that. That's a nice, important topic, actually. Yeah, Vladislav says, I think schools will never teach these great books. The goal of schools is to make people blue-pilled slaves. That is exactly the goal of the schools. They were said it last week, I think, in Brave New World, said it exactly that, the goal of the schools is to make people mentally good enough for jobs, so do math and some stuff, and smart enough to do jobs, but emotionally stupid, emotionally infantile was the word, like a baby. So under control. That's exactly right. But Fender says, what if someone's an atheist? Do they have no virtue? No, you can still be virtuous. The virtues, you can still focus on those natural laws. So even someone who's not sure, I would say, atheist is not a logical position, but let's say agnostic. We're not sure. Well, you can at least still see that there is a natural law. You can still see the importance of these traditional virtues. So absolutely, you can still be a good virtuous person for sure. Like I said, atheist is a foolish position, but agnostic is atheist means you are 100% sure there is no God. That's ridiculous because there's no proof for that. Agnostic is you're saying I'm not sure. Well, that's a fairly logical thing to say, but even as agnostics, you can think, well, I'm not sure, but I can certainly see there's a natural law. I can see there's a natural order to the universe and the world. I can see in humans and human society and human psychology, there are virtues that are true, that have been true for thousands of years, that are good, that create good people, that create good families, that create good societies. All of this you can see. The Romans believed it. The ancient Greeks could see it. Christians see it, Muslims see it, agnostics see it. So these are universal. So yes, that's why I so much focus on this idea of natural law. And again, the Eastern word is dharma. Dharma or natural law is the same thing. It's because it's not all religions and even agnostics, philosophers, they all respect this natural law and understand it and see the importance of these natural laws and these natural virtues. And all religions accept them, all the major religions, and even the non-religious do, who are good. So it's something we all share. This is why C.S. Lewis, as a Christian, was writing his book about Christianity, Mere Christianity. The first chapter is about natural law. It's not about Christianity specifically. His first chapter is about natural law, and he mentions how exactly that pre-Christians, that before Christians, they understood natural law, that Christians understand it, that Muslims understand it, that Sanatana Dharmis understand it, that Buddhists understand it, agnostics understand. And so he's like, this is the foundation. And then, of course, he was Christian, so the rest of the book is specifically about Christianity. But that first chapter is about natural law. Acharyaji, he follows Sanatana Dharma, and yet he teaches Dharma and natural law as a very important foundation. And you've seen this, you will see this in traditionally in different Islamic writings and teachings, and you see it also in philosophers, Greek and Roman and others as well around the world. So it's a good question, Bhupendra. It's a really nice question and a fairly deep question, and that's my short answer. Julia, thumbs up. I really like Bolsonaro. I like his style, man. I think I like him more than Trump. Yeah, Lisa, this is a good point. This is a very interesting idea, Lisa. John is struggling in Brave New World because he still has natural instincts. I think in today's world, in an intensified pornographic environment, many people can't find their place for that reason. Well said. What a nice idea. I think that's a great insight. That why is John having so much more of a problem? In his own world, John was not struggling so much. But in Brave New World, suddenly he's having so many problems, like with his sexual desire. Because he's not in a natural environment anymore, right? Because let's say a healthy society, in a healthy society, there's not pornography everywhere. Sex is not everywhere. The whole society helps your discipline, right? The whole society has that middle way. So it's easier. It's easier if the whole society has some discipline, has some control, has this middle way. Well, then it's much easier. You don't need to be so strong individually. But John is in this, he goes to Brave New World, and suddenly in Brave New World, there is zero control. Pornography is everywhere. Sex is pushed constantly all the time. So now, his natural desire, it's much more difficult to have discipline now because it's everywhere. It's like, if you are an alcoholic, you like to drink alcohol. Well, if you go to a monastery where monks live, it'd be kind of easy. There's no alcohol around, so it's not very hard to avoid drinking. Or if you go camping in the mountains, it's pretty easy. But if you go into a bar, and everywhere there's alcohol, everywhere everybody's drinking, everywhere people are trying to give you drinks, now you need huge discipline, huge willpower not to drink. Right? So it's a very good insight that Brave New World is so unnatural that a natural young man like John, it's very hard for him to resist now. And this is a good insight into our own world now. Because again, what has changed is the technology. So 100 years ago, we did not have internet pornography, okay? So again, now a young man, he's 18 years old, let's say, 16. And he's got a phone. He can just get on here and tap, 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 and now he's watching all kinds of pornography and just all kinds of crazy sexual acts and everything constantly, all day, right in his pocket, right in his hand with just a couple clicks. It's just, wah! Now, 100 years ago, there was not that, none of that. It was much harder to find. Maybe there were little, sexy books with, photographs of women. But harder to buy. You had to buy those somewhere. And for a young person, it would maybe be very hard to find, harder to find. And then even go back 200 years before cameras, 250 years, whatever. And then there were not even those, not even pornography magazines. Then what? Maybe drawings. But you see that the environment was much less. Yes, there were still some things, but it was much, much, much less. The environment was more natural, was more moderate. And so therefore, each individual, it was easier for them to have the middle way. But now it's everywhere. Even advertising now, you walk around, you see, the photos, all the women, they're, half dressed with little sexy looks on their face. The cover of every magazine and every store, some women making a sexy pose, wearing just very sexy clothes all the time. Television, regular TV, it's everywhere. So now a young man, he's 18, is just constant sex, everywhere he looks constantly. It's difficult. It's much more difficult. So now a young man needs a lot of self-discipline, much more self-control now, much more self-discipline now in today's environment. It's much harder. And why is that? Because the world controllers are using this to make us weak, because they want you distracted by sex all the time. They don't want you thinking deeply about these things. They want you focused just on sex and food and drugs and entertainment. So that's why it's everywhere. It's why it's so hard to get away from, to escape. All right, guys, I think that's all. I got to go watch some babies. It's time for me to be a dad. That's a great comment to end on, because that's a great insight. See, these kind of comments, really, you guys have such interesting questions, such interesting comments. You see things a little differently than I do sometimes, which is very great. Makes me think about, I didn't think about that, and that's a really good point. It's a very good point where we can understand maybe why people, I was going to say young people, but really all people now, it is harder now. It's more difficult now because the environment's more difficult. We're all living in Brave New World now. So we have to be stronger individually now. Our ancestors, there was less temptation for them. It was less, in their face. It wasn't everywhere all the time, constantly. So they needed a little less self-control. That's maybe the negative side of it, or the maybe depressing side. Now, on the positive side, guess what? It's also an opportunity for us because, okay, we live in a harder environment in that way. Now, our ancestors had other difficulties. We have to respect them. They had a much tougher environment in other ways, just surviving, for example. But anyway, in this sort of mental environment, it's hard for us, but this is an opportunity for us to be even stronger, because when we do resist, when we do develop our self-discipline, our self-control, we can become very, very strong indeed, much like Neo does, right? Because we can train ourselves to, even in this environment, surrounded by all this, sexual messages, pleasure, food, all of this, we can still train ourselves to be self-disciplined, virtuous, good, and true. And then we become very, very, very powerful indeed. That's the good news. All right, I will see you all tomorrow for our movie club. Of course, it's on Twitch tomorrow. Movie club lesson, continuing with The Matrix. Lots of love to all of you. Mwah! As always, join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Commit to my VIP program. Speak English powerfully at effortlessenglishclub.com. effortlessenglishclub.com.